The Dallas Mavericks have made their first move of NBA free agency, and I won't call it a curveball, but a bit of a plan B, it would appear. Najee Marshall signing a 3-year, $27 million contract. Tim McMahon already reporting that it will be under the mid-level exception.
Yep.
I would expect it's a ascending contract, so maybe it's $8 million this year, then 9 and 10, something like that. But Coop, we'll get to the Derrick Jones part of this. It appears they have pivoted off Jones into Najee Marshall here.
Yeah, I think Najee Marshall signing the 3-year, $27 million deal with the Mavericks does mean the end of Derrick Jones' 1-year tenure with the Mavs, and it seems like that the change in agent for Derrick Jones from his previous representation to Clutch Sports is a main reason why the Mavericks are no longer in the Jones business. Because basically what happened was Jones switched agents on Wednesday, and in the NBA requires a 15-day grace period or whatever for you to assume your new representation. Well, that won't happen until like July 11th, and the Mavs did not want to wait 11 days for Derrick Jones to be available to them. So they moved to Najee Marshall. They don't give him the full mid-level exception, but it seems like they are moving on from Derrick Jones.
I do, and we can't dig too much in this on the Jones agent 14-day thing, but like I find it hard to believe he's not going to sign with the team until July 11th.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
money's going to be dried up. Anyway, that let's talk about Najee first. Coming off his most efficient year with the Pelicans, 46% from the field, 39% from three. If you're comparing the two guys, Coop, Najee Marshall is bigger. He's 6'7", 220. Jones is kind of 6'5", 6'6", more like 200 pounds. So he's a little bit thicker, a little bit taller as well. Similar age. They're both 26, 27. Marshall's 26. This is interesting. He had a little bit of a smaller role with the Pelicans, just under 19 minutes per game. Jones played 23.5 minutes per game, and that number went up in the playoffs. So the Mavericks are clearly banking on him having a Jones-like impact for this team. Now, one thing I think is a clear difference, at least last year, maybe not historically, but last year, he is a better three-point shooter. Just under 39%. Jones shot 34 this past year. Now, prior to this year, Marshall in previous years had shot, I got the numbers here, 30%, 20%, 35%. So it's not like he's a 3 years running 37+% three-point shooter, but you would hope / think that playing in an offense conducted by Luka Doncic, he would shoot in the high 30s, given the looks he'll likely get. But this is fascinating nonetheless that on day one of free agency, Dallas is going to pivot off Jones and go with Najee Marshall.
And this came in from Mark Stein just when we started filming. He says, apparently Dallas pivoted to Najee Marshall after conceding they would not have the wherewithal to retain Derrick Jones. Wherewithal? Does that mean that they wouldn't pay him what Derrick Jones is going to get?
That or Jones and his camp are confident that he's going to get more than the mid-level. And if that's the case, there's literally nothing Dallas can do.
Yeah, they can't do anything about that.
If he signs a deal beyond the mid-level, say an Obi Toppin type of deal, $15 million per year, the Mavs can't re-sign him. They can trade for guys, they can sign and trade, or they could sign guys within the mid-level, which Marshall's going to take up $9-ish million. Maybe it's $8 if it's a little backloaded. That is an interesting effect of this. With him making $9 a year, you can use that other $3.5-4 million to maybe convince a guy that you're competing with other teams for vet min, offer him a little more. Like Nick Batum, I'll just throw a name out there. Is he a guy that, hey, 4 teams are interested in him on the vet minimum, you double that for him and you get him here? That's a possibility. But grade the signing here, A, B, C, D, or F. I mean, 3 for 27 for just about anybody isn't really crippling you financially. I'll go solid B. I think I would have rather had Derrick Jones, but clearly the Mavs don't make this move 3.5 hours into free agency unless they're uncomfortable with where it's going with Jones. So it's kind of hard to argue it. This was kind of the rumored plan B for Derrick Jones was Najee Marshall, and they've pivoted pretty early here, so that tells me they didn't like their chances of getting Jones back.
Absolutely, and I think Najee Marshall's an excellent defender, and he'll fit in well with the Mavericks. Look, and I think this sets up for the big splash of Klay Thompson, because that tells me that Thompson Seeps is coming in here saying zip him up because he's the Xavier guy. That comes in here. I think this means Klay Thompson, as of right now, is slated to start for the Mavericks if they end up keeping
no
him,
question.
right?
Yeah, I think Marshall would come off the bench clearly in that scenario. And Stein did mention that as well, that the Mavs are focusing on a sign and trade for Klay Thompson. So we will see. We will see how this plays out. Some more notes coming in from Bobby Marks that we'll get to in just a second. But this is why you sub. Free agency is here. Moves are happening across the league. And it's been a slow day one. This signing is actually one of the bigger moves so far in the association. So we got you covered here on Mavericks Today. I know a lot of you guys were watching our live coverage as well. I was live simulcasting on our Chat Sports channel and Mavericks Today, so appreciate the support and love over there. Let's keep it rolling as free agency is ongoing. I want to get to this note from Bobby Marks, Coop. He said, projected roster with Najee Marshall, the Klay Thompson scenario, move off $13 million in salary, sign and trade with Golden State into the $16.1 million trade exception. Tim McMahon quote tweeted that and said Josh Green will make $12.7 million next season in the first year of his contract. So that plus AJ Lawson gets you to the $13 million needed. It feels like a Josh Green centric sign and trade for Klay Thompson is where this is going unless Klay chooses another team.
I do believe Josh Green will be a Warrior, and if the Mavericks end up getting Klay Thompson's services, this is very fascinating, man, that they pivoted off Jones going to Najee Marshall. Saves them a little bit of money on that mid-level exception, allows them to fit someone else in there, maybe like you said, and then you're sending Josh Green the other way for a guy who is one of the best shooters in the history of this league. I still think he can shoot at a very high level, but getting Najee Marshall in, I bet he's the first guy off the bench as a wing defender, 3-and-D guy. I'm fascinated by this, Harrison. I got to tell you, this is not what I expected the Mavericks' first move to be.
And I'll say this, too. If Marks is right and that $16.1 million trade exception is used, if you get Klay on like a 3 for 48 type of deal, like
I'm in on that.
That's pretty good, man.
When I was thinking it was 3 for 75 to start.
Yeah, and look, Klay's obviously diminished, but he could still shoot the piss out of it. Maybe he's motivated to do a little bit more on the defensive end because he seems pretty pissed off at Golden State. So I'm fascinated by what that number comes in as. Mark Stein just tweeted again as well. He says, sources say Dallas remains focused on securing a commitment from Klay Thompson and completing a sign and trade that lands Thompson into its looming Tim Hardaway trade exception. The Mavericks' hope earlier today was that they still had a path to land Thompson and keep Jones.
It just sounds like they got priced out of Derrick Jones. And maybe, you know what, that's okay. Congrats to Derrick Jones for getting paid, but I think the Mavs probably made the smarter roster.
Look, maybe a team like Orlando is just like, screw it, we'll give Derrick Jones $17 a year. I mean, who knows? Maybe Philadelphia pairs him with Paul George.
Could be.
I think that's a possibility. And maybe Detroit, who has to get to a cap floor, is like, hey, we'll give you $16 a year. If you're Derrick Jones, you got to take top dollar. You will 100%. Never hit the market with your value higher. So I can't really blame him, and I can't blame the Mavs. Hey, it's like if you're worried that if you think your chances of securing Derrick Jones has gone down to 35%, that he's not good enough to wait on. He's just not. If Najee Marshall gives you 85% of what Jones gave you last year and shoots it a little better than Jones, then you just move on. I don't think that's the difference in being a high-level team. So
show some love to Derrick Jones in the comments. Type 55. He was a huge part of the Mavs getting to their third ever NBA Finals. No love lost whatsoever for Derrick Jones.
Last note on the way out, and if, of course, the Mavs make a move, we'll be back with another video. Woj reports that as soon as free agency opened at 6 Eastern, LeBron James called Klay Thompson. So it's
some things to think about.
It's Lakers or Mavs for Klay. I think that's pretty clear at this point. So we'll see what all happens. He's Jeffrey Cooperstein. I'm Harrison Graham. Wheels are starting to churn.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you soon here on Mavericks Today.